Yeah, this is where rules are important. This is where if you don't have some borders, some boundaries, some rules, something to hold on to, there can be a lot of a lot of mistakes. And she's a single parent with a daughter, and the daughter has massive social problems
Hmm.
because her daughter has no ability to understand limitation in communication. She is wild, basically. She's really
Hmm.
wild, and as a result of being wild, she's dangerous to herself and other people.
Oh,
And I think that this is because there is no father in her life, and there's no one to set rules for her. And I think everybody needs rules. So I spent the whole week setting rules, saying these are my rules. This is my place. These are my rules. You follow my rules or you're out. That's it.
mhm,
Because somebody has to explain this.
mhm.
Somebody has to set this. And of course I was the bad man, right? But
But you set these rules to your children or to this daughter of
no,
your
she
friend?
she she had to live by the same rules that my children live by.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so most important of those is that you listen to me first. Right? You listen to me carefully. And if you have something to say, I will listen to you. But first you have to listen to me. If you want me to listen to you, you have to listen to me. So
Mm-hmm.
so it was very interesting because it created some conflict, but the conflict was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict is necessary when your history doesn't give you the skills to navigate without the conflict. So some people are, sooner or later, some people are going to have a conflict. It's the type of character people are, sooner or later. And it's better to have the conflict sooner rather than later. It's always better to deal with the problem sooner rather than later. So this created some problems for the people around about me. But my perspective is that there needs to be some rules. And if I have to be the bad man, then I have to be the bad man. I don't care about that. I don't care because I believe that history, and by history I mean the future, because it's crazy. When we talk about history, we actually talk about the future because it's psychological. But anyway, that's not important. But I believe that history will prove me right
Mm-hmm.
because there's something called trajectory. Trajectory is where you are going and how you are going to get there. It's like the vision you have in business, yeah? Your vision or your goal or your target or your aim. And another concept for this is trajectory. It's where you're going and how you're going to get there. And a lot of people's trajectory is very bad. It's very negative. They're going to a very bad place. You can see it, especially as you get older in life and you have more experience. You begin to see it maybe. So some people have this ability when they're younger, and that's great. And so they can see it when they're 20, 30. Some people only get to see it when they're 30, 40, 50 years old. You can see where it's going. You can see that this kid is 8 years old, and you can see the alcohol, the drugs, the lack of borders, the bad friendships, the criminal activity. You can see it all coming. You can see exactly what's going to happen. And unless it's stopped now in some way, or unless you begin to change the direction now, then nothing will get better. Um, and the only time is now. The only time to do something is now. There is no tomorrow that's guaranteed to anybody anywhere, right? So it's very important, and I can see that this girl is 8 years old, and I can see that she's going to have major problems in the future if things are not changed now. This
Mm.
doesn't mean that she should have um, an authoritarian parent or guardian. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that if you didn't teach the rules in the past, you have to work twice as hard to teach the rules now in the present to make up for the mistake. And if it takes 8 years to make a problem, it takes 8 years to solve a problem. Yeah. Yes, the key word is some. That's the key word. Some. Some. We can find good examples everywhere, right? There are some nice people in prison. There are some nice people in prison. We can find good examples everywhere. Yeah. Um, so the thing you have to look at is trajectory and statistics. Yeah. Um, for example, here's a statistic it's basically factual. 50% of all marriages end in divorce. Right, which is a really horrible statistic. 50%
Mm.
of all marriages end in divorce. But if you are the child of a single parent, 80% of all marriages end in divorce. It doesn't matter what you teach them. The statistical
Mhm.
trajectory doesn't change. Kindness does not create weakness. Kindness creates
Okay.
strength. So therefore, if the
Okay.
resulting character, if the resulting habits of the character are negative, it's not the result of kindness, because kindness does not create weakness.
Hmm.
The child needs the child needs to sharpen their sword on something. The easiest way to sharpen a sword is on another sword or on a very hard stone.
Hmm.
And the dynamics of contrast that exist in the difference between a triangular relationship, by this I mean mother, father, child, and a one-way dynamic of parent-child. You understand the creation of space there, right? The
Hmm.
triangle has a big space in the middle, and that space is flexibility to maneuver and understand and develop and grow and contrast. But if you've got a single line, there's no space. There's no ability.
Yes, yes,
Not at all. It's never the child's fault, because the child
yes,
just follows the child learns what they experience.
yes.
They learn what they experience. So it's the mother's fault and the father's fault directly. Um,
Hmm.
this is why, you see, it's crazy. This is why when a lot of people grow up and they have problems later in life, say they either get divorced or something horrible happens, say they commit a crime, they go to prison, whatever. I, I, I have this feeling that maybe they should put the parents in prison also. Because sure, it's the parents' responsibility to guide and set the children on the right track. And um, parenting is very bad in the modern world. It was always bad throughout history, and it is still very bad today. Um, the majority of parents hit their children. The majority. The majority of parents hit their children.
Mm.
It is more normal to hit your child than to not hit your child. That's a frighteningly scary statistic. So the parenting is in general very bad, and sometimes non-existent, and sometimes even when we think it's good, it's not, because a lot of the world happens behind closed doors. We don't know what goes on at home. We only see the public face. When you go to
Mm-hmm.
church, everyone's dressed nicely. They don't dress like that at home. They dress like that to go to church. That's not
Mm-hmm.
real. That's not real. You're not seeing the real person there. You're seeing a projected image of how they want to present themselves. It's not real at all. Um, so, when the priest speaks in the church, the priest is wearing the clothes of the order of the religion that they have. That's not the person. That's not real. That's a projection.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of projection, some of which can be positive uh, in life, and the children suffer because of bad parenting, a lot. Um, well, here's the example I gave was with divorce. Like 80% of children who come from single parent families will get divorced. That statistic is almost automatic. Yeah. So because the statistic is almost automatic, there's no there's no chance. A child in a single parent situation has an 80% chance of getting divorced before before they even start.
But
Before they even do anything in
mhm,
life, it's 80%. Before they're
mhm,
even 1 year old, it's 80%. 8 out of 10. You can't turn back the clock. This is the reality that's very difficult for people to understand. That getting divorced is basically the same as cutting off your arm, right? Say you cut off your arm,
mhm,
and then a week later you take your arm to the doctor and you say, "Can you put my arm back on, please?" Right? The doctor will laugh at you, right? The doctor will laugh at you
mhm,
like you're a stupid idiot. Yeah. And people do this with their lives. People do this with their lives.
mhm,
Not only their lives, they do it with their children's lives. And they think that it's okay because they think that they can take their arm and put their arm back on. It's okay.
mhm.
But you can't turn back the clock.
Okay, but maybe the husband of this woman was really bad man.
Yeah, then the question goes back to the parents of that woman. How did her parents allow her to make such a bad choice in her life? How did her friends allow her to make
Mm,
such a bad choice? Because if your friend is going to marry an alcoholic and you don't take your friend and put them
mhm,
up against a wall and say, "You complete fucking idiot. You're going to
mhm,
marry an alcoholic. What the hell is wrong with you? You're going to destroy the rest of your life." If your friends are not protecting you, then you don't have any friends.
mhm,
And that's a hard lesson to learn, but it's real. And it's the parents' job to protect not only the present but the future of their children. I'm a strong believer that parents should be very involved in a person's choice of future partner. I
mhm,
don't think they should make the final decision, but I think they should be involved because they have some experience. And I don't think that doesn't mean they're right. It just means listen to those who have more experience. But you have the right to reject that and make your own mistakes. I mean, we all have the right to that. But listen to those. But also listen to those who are wise. Listen to those who are intelligent. Don't listen to those who are stupid. Don't listen to those who don't know. How can you take successful marriage advice from someone who's divorced? Please explain this to me. Right? I would not employ a racing car driver who always crashes. I would not employ that. right? And I would employ a racing car driver who always wins, or always keeps their car on the road, or always maintains their car in the best way possible. So, it's like a divorce is like a really bad car crash, right? You ruin everybody's lives, not just your own. So, um, so it's very it, it's very crazy because the children suffer because of the parents' mistakes, and the parents don't think
Mm-hmm.
they're making mistakes because society tells us it's okay. But um, 50% of first marriages end in divorce. 80% of second marriages end in divorce. See what happens when you try to repair the mistake? When you try to repair the mistake, you actually make a bigger mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you got it wrong the first time, how much did you learn? Because you obviously didn't know what you were doing when you promised when you promised, which is when you get married, you make this promise, which is which is in the Christian religious sense, it's a promise to God, basically. It's not a promise to your partner, it's a promise to God. It's a it's a covenant with God. It's a deep contract. Um, Contracts can be broken. Covenants basically can't be broken because they're with God. And definitely God can't break the contract, so it's down to the individual person. And if you break the contract with God, you go to hell. So there you go. Ha! So it's powerful, and a lot of people don't understand this, and I didn't understand this when I was younger, and I learned this the hard way. I learned this by making a lot of mistakes, and then thinking, "Oh my God, I listened to a lot of the wrong people. How did I make a lot of the wrong mistakes?" Because I listened to the wrong mistakes because I made the wrong mistakes because I listened to the wrong people. I programmed my brain in the wrong way. I had the wrong programs running, and it takes a lifetime to correct that. Um, it's hard. That's why there's in the Christian tradition and in many other religions there's a lot of counseling. Like before you get married, you go and sit down with the priest, and the priest talks to you about
Mm-hmm.
the principles of marriage and the concepts of marriage and your responsibilities to each other. And uh, and and this I thought this was in the past I thought this was really crazy. Now I actually think it's fantastic because now I've learned, right? I've learned all the I don't need somebody who doesn't. No, it's like they just want to help, right? They want to help you get your focus right. You got to get your focus right. Yeah, you have to have the right focus, and that's very difficult for people. And you have to be on the same page. You have to be on the same page and understand the kind of future that people want to build in the same way. And as I said earlier, trajectory is very important, and understanding that parents get divorced thinking that it's going to be okay. But in general, if divorced people are going to find new partners, they need to find somebody who's already divorced. In general, in general. So two people who made two big mistakes are going to suddenly get together and not make another big mistake. That's like taking two crashed cars and trying to put them together to make one good car. It just life doesn't work that way. It's it's actually far more complicated and far more obvious at the same time because um, because we can see the more experience we have this trajectory are going to uh, how things are going to work out in the future. And I think parents need to be very careful about the kinds of people that they spend time with, the kinds of friendships their children develop. And I think children also can learn a lot from their parents and their parents' friendships with people. Your parents' choice of friends determines the quality of conversations you hear, right? How many children? There must be. Here's my estimate. I don't know for sure, but I would guess 50% of children have only heard adults' conversations when adults are drunk. That's my experience. I reckon 50%. I reckon that's a good average, 50%. Because the adults get together, they have some beers, they have some wine, they sit down, they blah, 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 and they talk rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
It's not deep, it's not meaningful, it's not philosophical, it's not educational, and the children learn very little as a result. The result is you learn conversation is meaningless, you can say what you want and it doesn't matter. That's what they learn from that kind of experience. And the deeper conversations are very important. You can't make friends with everybody. You have to be selective. You can't have more than 5 good friends. There's not enough time. You can't have more than 5, and those 5 have to be tip-top quality people. Those people have to be people that you respect and look up to. And so that's very important for children to experience that. How many children have experienced their parents going through personal development? Not many. Not many. It's a minority. A minority of children experience their parents personally developing. So that the children don't get any idea of personal development because the parents don't do personal development. It could be well, there's 2 basic: physical and mental, right? Mm-hmm. So, physical is going to the gym, doing sports activities, and the mental would be working on skills to help yourself in your business, or working on languages, or learning a new skill, something which is interesting, trying something completely different, like just doing something that's completely different from what you would ever normally do. Like if you, it's even hard to think about because it involves doing something completely in a different direction. I don't know, going to look at model trains when you don't know anything about model trains. I don't know. Going to an exhibition or a conference about a particular topic that you know nothing about. Reading a book about something which is factual in history. Reading facts and not fiction, right? Most writing is fiction for a reason. It's society's social construct, right? Just read your fantasy and don't learn anything, right? What is it? The largest selling genre of novels is romance. Like romance is number 1, and that's what you read is what you become. So if you read trash, then you become trash. If you read rubbish, you become rubbish. If you read nothing important, you become nothing important. That's if people read. And reading is the first level. Writing is the second level. How many adults write? I don't know what it is for sure, but I'm going to guess that it's 1%. I'm going to guess that 1% of adults actually write something, anything. Why do we send kids to school? Send kids to school because you have to learn to read and write because it's really important. But the adults don't write. Most of them don't write, and most of them don't read anything useful. Education has failed miserably. We learn to read and write, but we don't write anything meaningful, and we don't read anything meaningful. Um, so so that's crazy. We're better than we were in the past, but progress is slow. And children see what their parents read. And if parents have a lot of history books on their bookshelf, if their parents have a bookshelf, a lot of parents don't have a bookshelf,
Mhm.
right? So, and the children will see what books are on the bookshelf, and they will at times take a book off the bookshelf and have a look at it and see what is interesting that is there within the book. Children are inquisitive. They study what happens around about them. They want to know answers to questions, especially if the parents remain open and teach the children to be open. I mean, if the parents continually say to the child, "Don't ask, don't ask, don't speak about this, don't talk," then eventually the children will stop asking and they will become very introverted. But um, and that could be positive or negative depending upon the circumstance. It could be positive because maybe it saves the child having a lot of problems. Um, it could be negative because they don't learn to express themselves. It's difficult to know. A lot of famous people had very difficult childhoods. Um, the the adversity is very important. Thinking about maybe Steve Jobs, who was adopted because um, his mother, who was a single mother, didn't want to have him.
Mm.
Or trying to think. Um, there must be some other example. I don't know. Abraham Lincoln, whose mother died when he was young and whose father left, and I think at the age of 13 he was on his own, um,
Mm-hmm.
looking after his family.
Mm-hmm.
So um, and that was without any of the social support
Mm.
that people get in the modern age. Um, and if you give people something for nothing, they never respect it anyway. It's